good, my people? I'm mixed by Ferno. This is Getting to the Bag podcast here at YYC Hip Hop Daily. Season 2, episode 7 about to roll out, but season 2, episode 8 comes out next week, and season 3 is coming out real soon. We got a new segment in the work, but tonight I brought in Polo Sho, the owner of Solar Studios, the creator of YYC Hip Hop Daily. He's going to let us know how he started the music, what he's got going on, and what's coming up for him. So hit a like, stay tuned, comment what you like about this episode and who you want to see on season 3. I'm mixed by Ferno, and this episode starts right now.
I go by Young Polo Sho, Solid Studios. Yeah, so much to talk about, but you ain't saying enough. Said it's the same old song about who's playing more thug, who's done the most wrong, and then getting caught. Violence and drugs, thotties that twerk. This what rhyme has become. What happened to passion and rap is not just chasing a buck. Now the music so watered down, you could swim it with trunks. Our packs being smoked, somebody died, it's not a joke. Kids ODing for they can vote. This is what we promote. Yeah, I know hip-hop's a reflection of what the youth is feeling, but it's starting to seem like a ruthless villain. They use his children, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just trying to get in first penny for my thoughts, but I'ma show y'all what I'm really worth. Every rap like a master thesis. I mastered this shit, same genre, but then you compare, and there's no resemblance. I'm a reflection of opportunity, meeting preparation, a declaration of continuity that takes us back to A-list and show.
Hello, it's me. It's me, babe.
Yo, Polo Sho, man. Thanks a lot for coming to Get Into the Bag podcast, being a part of this, being the owner of this.
Yeah.
Man, we're going to talk about how you started in hip-hop, what you got going on, man, your campaign that you did for your album, how you started the studio, and just everything Polo Sho today. So let's start from the very beginning, bro. How did you start hip-hop, bro? Like, what was that first initiation to, like, start Polo Sho?
Man, I would say it really goes really far back for me. So starting hip-hop, starting Polo Sho is a more recent story than starting hip-hop.
Okay.
So I started hip-hop when I was 9 years old. I'm turning 28 this year, so just close to 20 years, being a fan of hip-hop. And it really just, I think it started with Eminem's Encore CD, and I got into that whole M wave and that camp, and then shortly after was Get Rich or Die Trying, and then that's when I was sold for life.
Damn, that's crazy. So, like, what would you say was the first album that you bought that really, like, stuck with you until this age right now?
Oh, man, I would say Encore, man.
Encore?
And interestingly enough, like Eminem, even himself doesn't really rank that high of one of his albums, you know?
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
But for me, like, that was my introduction to hip-hop, and that's like, so that album still has cuts like Mockingbird on there, right? Like,
classics.
just like, just timeless cuts, right? So it's still like, it's not Eminem in his best form, but it's still, I can see what drew me to that as a kid. I don't think any other M album would have, gotten me to start the way I did if it wasn't like that album.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what got it started. When did you write your first, like, rap? Like, how old were you, and what did that consist of?
My first rap that I wrote was for a talent show that I did when I was in school in Nigeria, and the beat I wrote over was DJ Khaled's "We Taking Over."
Oh, okay. That's a banger.
Yeah, man. What that rap was about was just, it was my first. From the Eminem days, I was writing lines here and there, but that was the first time because we were gonna perform it. So that was the first time I had to construct a 16, right? There was a 16-bar verse on the beat. I had other guys I was performing with, and I had like 16 bars to write. And yeah, just talking about, just being the flyest. I had a bar about like shining like the American flag, like, just talking about girls, just stuff you're gonna say when you're a young kid, like doing rap. But for me, like when I performed at that talent show, like I was so scared the whole time. I literally stood in the one spot on stage. Yeah. But I just knew once I started rapping, like I just knew like I was like hooked. I was like, damn. Because people were like, I could tell I wasn't giving much of a performance because I was just standing one place, but I could tell I was still delivering my lyrics, and people were here. I could hear people were like reacting to stuff I was saying. And for me, like, I think we placed third in that talent show.
Okay.
So it wasn't really the outcome we wanted, but like for me, like just what I experienced on that stage in that moment was, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be doing this forever, probably. Like
that's what got you hooked and addicted, man. So like that was back in Nigeria, and then you came to Canada. What was that first step here in Canada to keep pursuing hip hop? Like, what did you do, bro?
I think so. When I came to Canada, my family moved to Canada in 2009. I wasn't, I was just a student. I was obviously very passionate about hip hop, but I wasn't really pursuing rap when I first came.
Okay.
It wasn't until like, I'd gotten settled in. I was in high school now, so I've been in Canada a couple years, and I had like a group of friends, and it was just kind of like what we were doing, like I think in grade 11.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from. I think I was rapping, and then a homie, like one of the homies in rap, like, oh, you rap? I actually write raps too. And then the other homie that didn't even rap was like, oh, we should just be going to my crib after school, and literally had nothing to do with music, but like we literally he downloaded Audacity.
Oh, there you
we
go.
had like a little like blanket with chairs in his basement, and it was just like every Friday night, just going. And I worked on, so in that process, for me, like from grade 11 to grade 12, I put out 3 to 4 mixtapes, just all recorded in the homie's basement.
That's sick.
Yeah.
That's the beginning, right? Like everybody starts somewhere, and like I know I definitely started in the basement. So you started in the basement. So like once you recorded those 4 EPs, you got a little bit better at rapping, man. What was that next step like? Because in Calgary a couple years ago, you were just starting to rap. Did you start meeting local artists? Did you start collaborating with different people? What was that next step towards, this journey that you're on?
Yeah. I think in high school, it really was just about trying to turn my classmates and, other kids in the school into fans. Like just,
That's true.
Sho raps. I was actually going by Sho Danny. I hadn't changed my stage name yet, which is my actual name. And so for me, like, it wasn't supposed to be, I really wasn't, obviously I had ambitions. All my favorite rappers were famous, but for me, at the time when I was putting out those mixtapes, it was really to get reactions from my friends and whatnot. So it wasn't until I graduated high school, honestly, that I went to my first 10 at 10 show. So 10 at 10 is a local media platform here in Calgary.
Cool.
Shout out 10 at 10. And yeah, they had shows going on at Commonwealth at the time where it was like 10 local artists on at 10 p.m. I think like a 10-minute set, so you get to perform 2 or 3 songs. Yeah. And I performed there twice, and that was a good opportunity to meet some local artists. And I just gone a couple other times just for networking. And I feel like that really got me like rooted in the scene and I was right out of high school once I did that. So that was my first step outside of, so I feel like making the mixtapes in high school, my friends was like my first, like, oh, I'm actually doing this professionally. I have the ability.
Yeah.
And then really going to those shows, and not just by 10 to 10, but really whenever it was a hip hop show going on and networking with people, that was when I started to get my foot into the Calgary scene.
That's really cool, man. So once you got your foot, when did you start seeing like the dominoes fall, man? Like when was that first, where you were like, okay, this is really happening. I want to keep pursuing this, and I'm gonna do. What did you do next?
Man, so I'm going to, I'll get to the part in the story where I got onto being Polo Sho. So for me, graduating from high school, I knew immediately I graduated, like what I wanted to do with my life was pursue music and, not go to university. Obviously, that's where my parents were nudging me to. That's kind of where the world was nudging me to. And just being a kid coming right out of high school and, saying I wanted to pursue rap, it just felt like those words couldn't come out of my mouth, and I feel like with looking back, really what it was I bit my tongue because I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't, I didn't have the courage to really put myself out there and say, no, this is what I want to do. So I just went with the grain, and I went to university. I did 1 year of university. I took a year off. I worked as a car salesman. I worked as a vacuum salesman going door to door. Lived in Edmonton for about 6 months. I really just lived life. Went back to school in 2016, did another year. So I finished 2 years of university. And then in 2017, I had a checkup with my cardiologist because I was born with a congenital disease. And it was always monitored from a kid, so it was never an issue. But I was just at the age where my cardiologist had recommended that, to improve my situation, I could undergo this surgery. They literally got the best surgeon in Canada just over in Edmonton in the university hospital. Yeah. And so it was like, yeah, this could be done this summer if you want to do this. And, so I was 22 at the time, and it was really what the doctor was saying was like open heart surgery, to improve your life. And long story short, it wasn't like it was completely hindering my life before, but I'd grown up with this, and I've always noticed, that it was something that was hindering my health. And so he really had given me this opportunity. It's like, you're old enough to go through the surgery. And so it really was, I ended up doing open heart surgery, and for me, that opportunity, I'm calling it an opportunity, but that experience was really what opened my eyes to what I wanted to be doing. Because prior to that, I was in university. I had a girl I was dating, and I was, my whole plan was, finish university in about 2 years, marry this girl, start a life. I'd really just put music, like, it was like a pipe dream in my head. I really just like, no, it's not. But I was always passionate. I'm always checking in on all the hip hop sites. I was always tapped in, but I was like, nah, that's not something I can do. And yeah, it was really, to be honest, it was really just that surgery, because, when you do a surgery, you have to sign like a consent thing saying like, the doctor's basically like, the surgeon's like, yo, I'm a professional. I've done millions of these or countless of these, but this is still a life-altering, life-threatening situation you're going into, and there is a possibility that you could die if this goes wrong. And literally, I don't think a lot of 22-year-olds will have to endure that. I literally had to, I spent a night thinking about it. I can just sign it in the office that day. I went home and I'm like, man, like if I sign this paper, this guy can kill me and continue with his day. Like, obviously it's not that extreme, but that's really what it was. So it was just that whole experience, man, seeing my mom's face, when they took me to the operating room, like just coming out of the surgery and being in ICU for a couple of days, literally had a fucking, like, maybe there's too much details, but they literally had a tube up my pee hole. Damn. Because I literally could not get up out of bed to pee. So literally it was like once the bladder reached a certain level, it would just drain out. So that's literally that was the level of weakness I was at. Now when I think back on my life, I don't think I'll ever feel that weak ever again. Just not being able to move. And it really was, I spent a lot of nights, I wasn't even allowed to turn because of the incision on my chest, where I was just staring at the ceiling. So because I couldn't turn in my sleep, and I always sleep on my stomach. Yeah. So I would just spend nights staring at the ceiling, and I just really thought, like, yo, when I get my full energy back, what do I really want to do with myself?
What do you want to put it towards?
Yeah. And it took that serious situation for me to be like, yo, school is not what I want to do. I don't know who I'm doing this for. But, that's not, it's fun. It's crazy how, like, if that didn't happen, like, I would have
continued on that path,
and, I just kept lying to myself.
You think that if you continued on that path, that maybe you wouldn't be as happy as you are today?
Oh, 100%, bro. Because, like, once I made that decision, I remember the night, I was literally lying down on my back, staring at the ceiling, and I'm like, bro, when I get out of here, it looks like I'm just, everything is set up. I'm going to start my next semester at school. I'm going to be I have to figure out my renting situation for where I'm going to be living by school. And I'm just like, bro, these are things that I have to do, but is this really what I want to do?
It's not what's going to fulfill your life and your passion. And that brings me back to, like, you were saying you don't know who you were doing it for, but, like, sometimes it's the pressure that's put on us from our parents. Would you agree?
I think I would definitely say my parents. My parents are from Nigeria, and that's, Nigeria is not as evolved as here in Canada, where we're from. If you don't get an education, you're pretty much dooming yourself. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's how even though we were living in Canada, that's how my parents saw it. It's like, oh,
it's the make or break of everything.
Yeah,
basically.
If you don't want to go to school, like, that's you're accepting life as a bum, basically. Like, and that's so there was that pressure from my parents, but there was also, like, Calgary's Cowtown. It still is Cowtown, but it's a lot more progressive now. But when I graduated from school those years ago, like, it just felt like at the time, like, trying to tell people, like, hey, I'm gonna be Calgary's next rapper. It just seemed so there was that from my parents, but it was also just from society. So I think I could put the blame on a lot of people, but it was also just, when I look back on it, it was me not having the courage to be who I truly believe that I wanted to be. Like, what I mean? I conformed to what society said. No, you graduated, it's time to go to school, it's time to spend this much time in school, you need to get a 401k, you need to get, and so I allowed myself to believe, what, I'm going to be on this path, this is what I'm doing.
So, like, how did you build up that courage and maneuver through those, obstacles that arise when you want to do something that you're so passionate about, but maybe society doesn't view it that way, or maybe your parents are kind of like, yeah, that's cool, you can have that when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, but in the back of the head, it's always like, but music is what I'm supposed to be doing. But, some people don't see it like that. So how did you maneuver and build the courage to kind of break through that and be like, nah, this is what I want to do, I'm not going to listen to what anyone else says?
Yeah, so honestly, it did take some time. So even when I had figured it out that I didn't want to go back to school, I wanted to pursue music, it was still, I still, my parents were visiting me every day at the hospital, friends were coming. I still wasn't telling people that, I was still like, yo, they're asking me, so, what's it gonna be looking like when you recover? And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to pick some classes. I'm still talking like.
So I have that mindset.
I'm not, but even though in my heart I know what's happened. So it was a slow burn, but it really was, I basically started that semester and it was like a midway through, I was like, yo, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not coming to school. I'm not like, I need to just figure out what I'm doing. And so it really was, that was the beginning of it, was dropping out of university. The first job I had was at Palace Theater. And to me, like that was the closest thing I could get to a music-related job. So that's a venue here in Calgary, 1,000 to 1,500 capacity. Ooh. So I was just there like, weeknights, or whenever they had shows, weeknights and some weekends. So it was very sporadic work. And it would be a lot of like DJ or techno shows going on. And so people are standing in the crowds. And my job was I was a busboy going around with a bucket and just picking up all the plastic cups.
Okay.
And like putting all that shit in.
What year was that, bro?
Oh man, what year was that? That was, I want to say 2017.
Shit, I might have seen you on one of them shows.
Yeah.
I know you. That's crazy,
yeah, man. Yeah, man, it was definitely like, yeah, it was, I feel like that was me just being desperate to get into music, man. Literally my first day on the job, I had to like clean, mop, vomit, from the, because it's like people just turning up, right?
People turning up, doing the Molly and shit, fucking throwing up at the end of the night.
I really thought it would be an opportunity to, I don't know if Tory Lanez or someone is performing, when I can pick up all the cups quickly and hey, while you're unpacking, exactly, like slide in some music, get in the conversation, right? I think at that time, because the last thing I had recorded was probably in 2015 or whenever, right? So I hadn't had, like, I really wasn't a musician, during those university years, for like 3 years there. And it really was like sort of switching my mindset back. It was just, for me, it was about immersing myself in the scene. One of the things that I did do that really helped me go a long way was I ran into someone who actually ended up becoming a good friend of mine, Tony Tusick, at Axe Music, because I was trying to get some equipment to set up my own studio. And, we had linked up, we had worked on some stuff together, and long story short, we had a relationship. He ended up telling me, like, hey, this fall, he's going to be going to audio school for study audio engineering, to get certified for recording, mixing, and mastering music professionally. And at the time, I'd even paid Tony to do some mixing for me and whatnot, so I was, in my mind, I was always like, I'm a rapper and, that's someone else's job, and it was really like, I really do credit him for that, because he was really someone who was like, no, I can see you actually have the mind to do this. So shout out Tony Tusick, because without his encouragement, he was already in the program. He sent all the details to me, and I was like, you know what? I'm already in fucking student debt for my degree, so I might as well just pile on some more.
Get some more on there.
So yeah, ended up doing school. I went to school for audio in 2018. That's actually where we met, Ferno.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, like from there, I feel like that really also gave me the confidence. So the question you asked, and I feel like we've gone a long way, was where I get that courage to break through, even though like society was like, don't do this. I feel like going to school put me around a lot of other like-minded people who are trying to pursue music as a career.
Yeah, that's right.
It really immersed me in that environment where I was making music every day. I was in a studio every day. And just by the time I had completed the program, by the time I graduated, for me, who literally went into that program with no fundamental understanding of what mixing was, it really just gave me that confidence that I was like, it's just a piece of paper, and it's not like I showed the piece of paper to everyone, but it's like, for me, it was like that mental, like, I'm actually a professional musician, and I would say since then, I've grown so much as an engineer because it's all about experience.
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask you, bro, after APRA, what came after you got certified as an audio engineer? Like, what was that next step into the field? Did you start working with other artists? Did you take what you learned and implement it into your own sound? And how did your sound evolve if you did implement it into your own sound?
Yeah, so from 2017, when I got back into music, the first thing I went to the studio to record was a 7-track project that I put out on SoundCloud, called Everything's Good Here Volume 1, entirely produced and written by me. and I put it out on a SoundCloud page. I titled the SoundCloud page Lifted One Records.
Oh.
And so in 2017, my vision was that, this Lifted One Records is a record label, even though it's just a SoundCloud page, and other artists will put out their music under Lifted One Records. And so for me, it was just my approach to getting into music. 'Cause I knew I wanted to own my stuff, and I wanted to have that label ownership.
Yeah, definitely.
And so someone who I went to high school with, a D artist named Infamy, he's actually a certified audio engineer from APRA. He had graduated about 2 years before we did.
Oh shit.
And so he was someone I was talking to. I'm getting back into music. I want to start doing this. And he was just down. So after I had done that project, I linked up with him and we did a project called No Feelings. No Feelings, that's what it's called. And it's a play off Lil Wayne's No Ceilings mixtape.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was just doing there's 5 tracks on there, and it was just freestyles over, popular beats at the time. So I think I had Coco, I had Hot Boy.
That's it.
I'm gonna say hot. Yeah, just a lot of like banging beats. I'm just like, I'm just talking my shit on there. And so from there, Soy, his artist name today is The Only Real One.
Okay, yeah.
Who was a childhood friend of Infamy, was moving back in town when he basically was in the States and he saw what we were doing in Calgary, and he was like, yeah, I'm actually planning to move back to Calgary and this year. I would love to join what you guys are doing. So by the time I had graduated from APRA, I had a record label that had 2 other artists on it, including myself. And so what I did with my newfound mixing skills was we put out the first label collaborative project, which is A Dying Breed. That's what it's called. And you can find that on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music. And the artist name is Lifted Ones. So it's myself, Infamy, The Only Real One. We have a bunch of other collaborations from local Calgary artists on there. Who else is on there? We have Alero, we have Shiro Jackson, we did some ciphers, we have Young Poppy Bonito, Prophet. So a really stacked project. It really was ambitious when I look back on it, because it was really, I just finished school and we didn't even have like a studio. So we're either recording in my place, we're recording in someone's apartment, wherever we can record. I just had like a cheap Audio-Technica mic. Yeah. So wherever I could set up and get people recording, that's what I was doing. And so at the end of that, we put out A Dying Breed at the end of 2019, and we did a release show for the project.
That's dope.
At Junction, and it was a really good turnout. Over 100 people showed up for that, and I would say like that was, for me again, that was once I graduated from school. That was the first sign I knew, like, yo, we're now professional musicians. Like now we're building towards that. We have a label situation. We're doing shows where it's selling out. The music is high quality. You know what I mean? So for me, that was what it took, and that's what I did immediately. And I just started a pattern there, just working on more projects since then.
Yeah, so I want to talk about some projects that came after that, like your first album, bro. Can you talk a little bit about that? How did it come about, and what you did in the marketing aspects of it all? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, man. So my first studio album, titled Determination, is really just, for me, it's like the brainchild of me wanting, I guess, what's the best way to put it? It's exactly what I'm saying to you, where I'm talking about how I always wanted to pursue music, but I was lying to myself. And then it took that heart surgery for me to be like, nah, I really want to do this. And so that's really what Determination is about. It's a concept album. And it was really me just, detailing my story of, how, from me getting into hip hop to doing it professionally right now. So I knew right at the end of the Lifted Ones album, A Dying Breed, we were going, like, I was going to need money to put out my project. Like, I just knew, because we did a whole thing with that project. We were rolling it out for weeks before. We were doing ciphers every month. It was, I could just tell, like, and that was the first, like, again, I had mixed and mastered that project completely with Infamy. And so that was the first project where I also have beats. I'm also a credited producer and rapper and vocalist on it. I just felt like that was the first project where I had hands in everything that made the project. So when we got to the end of that process, I just knew like, all right, that was a collaborative album. If I'm doing one for myself, it's got to be a lot smoother. It was the first time doing it, so there were a lot of things that could have happened more on schedule, etc. So at the end of 2019, after we released that album, I had the idea to do a crowdfunding campaign.
Okay.
And it was with ATB Booster, and that's what they call ATB Bank is a bank here in Canada.
Yeah.
And that's what they call their ATB Booster is what they call their campaign funding like platform. So basically, through the way it was set up was I would set up a goal and a campaign, like what I'm raising money for. And if I reached my goal, so I would get people to donate. And if I reached my goal, then they will pay out the money to me. And obviously they would take like their processing fee out of the total amount. Yeah, so basically, if I didn't reach my maximum amount, like, or the target that I set, then no matter how many people had donated, if I didn't reach the maximum, they're gonna get their money back. So it was just more motivation for me, I think it was a 30-day or I think it was 45 days. So a 45-day long campaign where basically I had to convince people over the course of the 45 days to help me raise $2,500. And so I did that in the form of, so on the campaign I had ways you could donate from $5 to $1,000.
Yeah.
$1,000 you'd get like one of my handwritten raps out of my rap book. I had what else did I have? Like merch for like $20. I had like a merch bottle package, or like, yo, come be in a music video for like $200. So just things where it's like you're giving me money, but it's like for the higher your pledges, you're actually getting something from the artist in return. And obviously I'd seen successful crowdfunding campaigns done by artists all over the world. So that's what inspired me to do that.
Did you reach your goal?
I did reach my goal. So it took me the 45 days. It wasn't until the last day. I actually surpassed my goal. So I think I did, it was $2,500 was all I was trying to do. So I did $2,550.
Oh, nice.
So just $50 over. And yeah, it was just in that it was actually, I got a lot of the donations on the last day because I was telling people, hey, like, yo, it's the last day. If I don't reach this amount, like, so it's like, yo, people were like, yeah, I'll throw you $5.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, I think in the end I had over 50 boosters is what we call them, but people who supported the campaign.
That's really cool, man. So you gained a lot of experience from all that. And then what did you do once your album dropped? What was how did the mass of Calgary take it in, man? Like, the masses around Calgary. Like, did they love it? Did they not love it as much? What were you expecting with the album? Did it hit your expectations?
Man, I would say no. The album did not hit the expectations I wanted to hit for it. So the campaign was successful at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
The album was supposed to come out in 2020. However, 2020 is the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic.
COVID.
So a lot of my plans changed. Like the people I was hoping to collaborate with, I couldn't get into the studio with them. Really, so that album really ended up, I worked on the whole album myself in my home studio. It's entirely produced by myself and the only real one. So he was sending me beats. And it's entirely engineered by myself. So it really was like for myself, I feel like I really got into my head with that album. So what happened in 2020, I put out a mixtape because I knew I was taking longer with the album. The mixtape is called Return of the Fresh Prince. You can find that on all streaming platforms.
Is that also on Lifted One platforms, or is that on your platform?
That's everything I put out is under the label Lifted One Records. So even if it's on Spotify, like the fine print, like the copyright and whatnot is to Lifted One Records.
Okay, cool.
I would say, so yeah, they're not on. So Lifted One Records is also a SoundCloud page. Mm-hmm. Once I started putting out albums, that's when I saw those albums, all these releases I'm talking about that are on Spotify are not available on SoundCloud.
Oh.
And vice versa, the stuff on SoundCloud is not available on Spotify.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, yeah, I put out that mixtape in 2020, Buy Myself More Time. 2021 came, and my label mates and I just decided, like, we couldn't keep doing this. We didn't have a home base. We were either meeting up in people's apartments and whatnot. Yeah. And so in 2021, that's when we decided we wanted to get a studio.
Oh, okay, that's dope.
And so Enter saw the studio April. So that was really the bind for me. It was that when that album was about to drop, we were I was fully invested in opening a studio. I put a lot of money, I sunk a lot of money into the studio. So it was just like it was just a timing thing for the album. It was just for me. So basically, I feel like that's a great album, but for me, I didn't put the effort I should have put into marketing the album. Because again, and that's something I've learned as an entrepreneur. Sometimes I try to spread myself thin. Like I'm like, yeah, it's crazy to think I'm gonna put out an album. I'm gonna spend X amount of time full time marketing it, but I'm also gonna be a full time audio engineer. I got to build the studio and work with other artists and whatnot. So it was one or the other, and I feel like I picked the wrong one really. But
What you pick? You picked audio engineering?
I did pick audio engineering. I wouldn't say it was the wrong one because I did start up a business where we were over a year in the business. I've gained.
Congrats on that, bro.
Thank you, man. I've gained a lot of experience, as an audio engineer for other artists. Like I feel like my experience has grown so much than if I was just working on my music for that last year, right? So I wouldn't say, at the end of the day, because I'm in this position right now, I wouldn't say it was a bad decision.
Yeah.
I just wish I had put more into marketing that project. With that being said, the people who I did do a release show for it, the people who did hear it, got really great feedback from it. Like for me, that project it's really me putting myself out there, right? Like it's a lot of what I'm saying on that album are those thoughts I had when I was in ICU with myself, just thinking like, yo, do I want to go back to school? Do I really want to pursue this music? So really just being an open book on that album. I really see that album as like a diary entry. And so for me, even though it wasn't well promoted or it didn't do anything as far as accolades, I still see that as like like a gemstone in my catalog.
Cool, man. That's really good to know. So, like, before we get off this podcast, is there anything that you want to let the people know that they don't know or that maybe they need a little refresher on?
Yeah, so I guess just I'm Polo Sho, a YYC MC, a rapper, audio engineer, producer, entrepreneur. Yeah, like I'm super passionate about this. I can feel, for me, I can feel an energy in the city. A lot of people, a lot of Calgary artists would say, there's not a scene here. That's not happening anytime soon. But for me, I feel like I have my hands so deep in it that I can see the different corners where progress is being made, and I feel like sooner than later, Calgary's time is gonna come.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I had a good feeling about that episode. We really got to know Polo Sho and how it all started for him. I'm mixed by Ferno. This is Get Into the Bag podcast at YYC Hip Hop Daily. Hit a like, subscribe, share this video with one person at least. I love y'all for doing that. I had a great time. Hope y'all had a great time. Stay tuned for season 2, episode 8 with TK Othello. I'm mixed by Ferno. This is YYC Hip Hop Daily. Y'all have a great day.